You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. It is Thursday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. Do you know what's going on in these wild, turbulent Fed and earnings and global geopolitical-driven markets? Let's find out together, shall we? It is time for the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks have been sucking down the bandwidth. Luckily for you folks, there's more to spare behind that, so suck away, have at it. Of course, a great week so far this week, great pro Q&As, great OBC, doubleheader of OBC yesterday, advisor's option on Monday, always fun when we get to crunch some earnings vol numbers with Matt and his crew, all sorts of fun over there. Already on the network for you as we speak, on top of everything that's coming at you the rest of the week. Remember, if you like what you hear, this show, anything else on the network, a like, a star, a comment, all that stuff in aggregate does help new people. Yes, it's hard to believe there are new people discovering the world of options every day, helps them beat a path to our door. And of course, if you want to discover more, you've hit that next level, you want to jump up, get past the velvet rope, and join the secret club. Only one place to go, theoptionsinsider.com/appropriately enough secret club. That'll get you there. That'll get you in the door for coming up for the July Pro Trading Crate. It is now August 1st. I'll have to get the producers, get the random number generator. Maybe we'll do it on vol views tomorrow. As well as, of course, get access to options oddities after vol views and all the other fun. theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go as we go around the horn, see who's joining us on the show today. First, let's go out to the hallowed halls of Cboe East, where we are joined once again by the flowingest of masters, Mr. Henry Schwartz from Cboe. Mr. Flowmaster, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thanks, Mark. Good to be on with everybody. We're having some excitement here in the market this week, really. So there's a lot to talk about, but it's a warm and muggy day in New York City, and let's get into it.
Like whenever you join us, we have a little bit of market tumult. So I'm thinking there might be a little bit of causation more than correlation there, Mr. Flowmaster. What do you think?
If I can make the market move, I just need to figure out how to harness that power, and we can all make some money.
Use your powers for good, sir, instead of evil. As we keep on rolling, he's always using his powers for evil. He is the Meatball, Mr. I almost said the Rock Lobster. I apologize. Mr. Meatball, a.k.a. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, welcome back to the show, sir.
Did you just call me evil?
I said you use your powers for evil. I didn't say you yourself are evil. There's a difference.
So, I mean, if I'm using my powers for evil, that pretty much tells me I'm an evil person.
No, but the bad guy always thinks he's the hero of his own story, right? So there you go. You're the hero of your own story, sir.
Well, so I'm Skeletor, is what you're telling me.
You might be, yes. He just wanted to capture Castle Grayskull. Was that so evil?
Yeah, I guess not. I got to take down. So who would be the sorceress then? Is that Mike Tosaw?
Yes, he is very much the sorceress.
I'm He-Man.
Yes, the tinny voice of the Meatball. As we go out now, we are joined, I do believe, in the hinterlands of Chicago by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Sounds like he's coming to us from the bowels of Castle Grayskull. Mr. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show. Where are you beaming in from today?
Gotta do the mobile office. I'm heading out to visit a client today, cross country. So nothing stops me from being on the option block. And in this equation, I am He-Man.
He's lying to you, listeners. He's coming to you from the bowels of Castle Grayskull as we keep on rolling into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block. How cool would that be to do the show from a life-size recreation of Castle Grayskull? Maybe I'll work on turning the studio into that. That'll be a fun little side project. What do you think, listeners? In the meantime, we'll get into a little bit of the fun that's lighting it up. And I was only half joking. It does seem like whenever I join forces here with the Flowmaster on the show that we do have some red, some tumult on the screen. So that's what you're coming for. That's what's bringing you to the dance today. Then you're a happy camper. Of course, we've had a rock'em sock'em week already. Of course, we had the Fed popping off yesterday, pretty much acting as expected, keeping things unched. Of course, everyone was looking towards September, and maybe Powell and company weren't perhaps as excited about a rate cut in September as some folks thought. And we also had some pretty garbage numbers coming out of Microsoft. It seemed like all of that just got lost in the wind yesterday as markets just roared to life. S&P back north of 5,500 again. And then it seems like we're just giving it all back up today, even though the big numbers have yet to really materialize after the bell. Everyone's, of course, waiting for the two big A names today, Amazon and Apple. Nonetheless, markets selling off ahead of them. S&P off nearly 1.5% right now, closing in at 80 handles to the dark side. So now well back below the 5,500, in fact, well below 54.5 right now. Dow also off 1.4%. And the NASDAQ, never one to be outshone, off almost 2.2% right now. And then, you know what? Small cap to say, hold my beer, kid, to all of that. They're off almost 3.5% right now. So the small caps giveth and the small caps taketh away. And they are taken away with both hands out there today. All that baking back into a VIX cash that is, surprise, surprise, a little bit firmer than it was on the Monday show. At about an 18.20 when we kicked off the show, puts it up nearly 2 points, about 1.8 points from where it was this time on the Monday show. And VVIX back in rock'em sock'em territory at a 108. So not just at the triple digit level, but all the way through it at a 108. That puts it up 13 points from where it was on the Monday show. So yeah, things are looking a little bit frothy out there. Let's go around the horn the way we started. Let's go out to the hallowed halls of Cboe East first. Mr. Flowmaster, I still am not unconvinced that you are not driving all this market action. So what's catching your eye in the wreckage that you hath wrought, sir?
All right. Well, listen, as an experiment, I will declare that the market is going to rebound during the next 42 minutes. So it's a paper trade, and in my head, I just bought some futures at 54.81. So we'll see what happens.
Henry, you're buying futures and not zero DTE? What kind of Cboe employee are you?
Actually, that's a very good point, Mark. And in fact, if I just bought a few zero DTE calls, then I have defined risk, right? I can only lose what I pay for those calls. That's one of the reasons people actually, the institutional side, even some very quantitative traders love the zero DTEs, because the truth is, like, if you want to bet whatever $500 that the market's going to bounce and you don't want any chance of losing more than that, then you can buy a 5 lot of zero DTE calls for $1.
Exactly.
But what we're looking at today, so it's a little different picture. Realized vol is higher. The 30-day realized vol has gone from about 7 to 14 in the last few days. Okay, because we've had some pretty big moves. One of them was a big up day, right? And that's why you see VIX basically going from 13 to 18. It's a little bit different of a feeling. It's funny because what I think where this is coming from is we're getting more transparency in when interest rates are going to get cut, and this may be one of those cases of buy the rumor and kind of sell the fact, because people all of a sudden are like, oh well, this is what we've been waiting for, and maybe the Fed waited a little too long. I think that's part of the fear here, is that a lot of the observers, feel like the Fed's been a little bit slow because they wait to see the data, and the data is always a little bit lagging. But I did just put out some stats for the end of July. And Mark, I put a picture in the chat. You can tweet it out if you want. We had over 50 million contracts average daily volume for July. That's the first month where the average has been over 50 million contracts. So, and if you kind of dig into the segments, everything was active. Single stocks especially saw a pretty big jump over the average we were seeing for the second quarter. But ETF and index volume was also really strong. And for the first time, I actually put a bar for flex activity, because that's now pushing 1 million contracts a day on plenty of days. So just a really active period, definitely more volatile. Last week we had kind of that emergency rotation into small caps, and now that lasted for a day, and there's just kind of like there's a lot of volatility out there. It's kind of exciting.
In case you're not following us on Twitter, listeners, you don't see the charts. Henry sent over a graph and an image that has the entire industry average daily volumes. That's the entire day. Back when the Rock Lobster was only 20 years into the business in 1991, the entire industry averaged 785,000. And Henry's little data point here on July 31st, so yesterday, the first minute's worth of volume, 725,000. I think that summarizes it all right there, how much the volume has just, how the entire options market has changed. Not just since 1991, Henry, but really in the last 4 or 5 years. A few years ago, you and I were talking about 3-4 billion contracts a year. Like, that was a big deal. And now that is well in the rearview mirror. We have NVIDIA putting up almost 11 million contracts in a day. It seems like an untamed beast, even compared to just a few years ago, Henry.
I mean, yeah, the activity that we see on these busy days is really astounding. I mean, I've said that we could easily see 100 million contract day if we get some sort of real major action. This year has actually been kind of, there's a lot going on, but we haven't had the beginning of the year. We had a couple 70 million contract days, but it's actually been pretty mellow. June was actually kind of a quiet month. July was a lot stronger. But yeah, the amount of volume that the 17 exchanges that we have, and there'll be 18 in 2 weeks, because the new Sapphire exchange is set to launch on August 12th.
Well, we need more, and we need more exchanges.
That's going to be a floor in Miami if you want to move to Miami. Yeah.
Yeah, the Miami boys finally going to have a floor in actual Miami. They've been calling themselves a Miami exchange
it's weird, Henry. Why didn't they open the Sapphire exchange in New York? It's a little weird.
They I don't know. I think a lot of people want to be down in Miami. They actually, one of their selling points is trying to get some of the firms that are located in Chicago to relocate to to Florida, where there's a little bit of a trend for that. You saw Citadel do it, right?
Yeah. Well, they also might have a confuse some gentlemen late at night.
They have told me in the past they have had a lot of uptake just on the climate and just general shift from let's say Chicago or New York down to Florida is a selling point for a lot of people. Even though some people I've heard are demanding to have an actual Starbucks on the trading floor itself, which goes to show you how far we've come since I was down on the floor. When if you carried a water bottle down there, they tackled you at gunpoint, and now folks are demanding to have their delicious lattes in one hand while they trade. All right, Mr. Meatball, I'm sure you're probably going to be relocating to Miami to get in on some of this action. What's catching your eye out there in a very tumultuous week, sir?
Well, I'd be more likely to move to Dallas if they open up that exchange, which they're talking about.
Don't hold your breath on the size options exchange in Dallas anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they end up doing there. There's how many real active floors are there that people can trade on? You've got the box. You've got, obviously, the Cboe. And Mark, I don't know if you and I talked about this. When I went to the floor, and Henry, I'm sure you know this, firms, I was talking to a broker in SPX, and interestingly, in 2009, he became the last Cboe floor trader for Susquehanna ever until this last couple of months. Firms are actually putting traders back in the equity pits on the floor.
Yeah, I heard they added 7 new market makers, something to equity market makers, not just index. That is crazy.
Right. I was floored by this. But the logic was pretty clear. The traders are trying to get, there's traders on the floor of the box, there's traders on the Amex, there's traders on the PCOS now. And, since really they put a trader down there and they're trying to get 10 to 15% of these big crosses going up, because they're realizing if I get on that, if a big cross at 20,000 contracts goes up and my trader on that floor gets 400 of them, that's in one trade as much edge as some of these firms are getting. Edge is kind of how much money you're making relative to theoretical value. That's how much edge these firms are making in half an hour across all their other trades. So there's now an advantage of being on the floor again, which I thought was pretty darn fascinating.
Everything old is new again, sir. After Susquehanna famously got burned on all those DPMs and washed their hands on the floor, now they're back. It's what I'm hearing, if I read between the lines, is you are relocating the option pit HQ back to Chicago, and you are going to become an equity options market maker again. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I thought you and I were going to form a partnership here. We were going to call it the Option Insider Pit.
I say the Insider Pit, Meatball Insiders, all sorts of combos we could do there. We'll add 2 more. There will now be 9 equity market makers down. Imagine just the explosion of market making that would happen if we were down there. And I could do some shows on the floor. It would be a mad rush. Everyone would want to be. Maybe we'd have to keep it quiet for a while.
It'd be huge. But yeah, so today I continue to be flummoxed that the VIX is only 1838. We have yesterday we had over 110 point range. Today the range is 125. The previous day we moved a ton as well. Realized volatility as of the 31st was all the way up to 1820. Today it's going to be, I think, over 20, and vol just is not keeping up. We're starting to see some action in VIX options. I was looking, and we've got you and Andrew will be talking about this on Vol Views tomorrow, but pretty decent sized VIX trading today. Jan 2025, 42.5 calls going up 100,000 times for 59 cents. 55,000 September 20 calls for $1.35. August 47.5 calls for 12 cents, 40,000 times. So we're starting to see some real action in the VIX, and you can see it in VVIX, which is the vol, which is skyrocketing today. VIX may be a little bit underperforming, but VVIX is not. It's all the way up to 110. It's up 17 points today. And some of the other VIXs are blowing up. The one-day VIX, which I didn't think could go up, is 2163. 9-day VIX trading at almost 20. So when you look at the very short end of the curve, it is backward, which I think is really interesting.
Very interesting indeed. Yes, as you mentioned, I kind of noticed that as well. It seems like VVIX just making up for lost time out there today. Listeners just roaring back to life. You know who's roaring down the highway right now? He is the uncleest of Mikes. Maybe he's racing to your hometown. Maybe he's coming to meet with you right now, listeners. In the meantime, while they're preparing for their one-on-one face-to-face meeting with the uncleest of Mikes in his Uncle Mike mobile. And what's catching your eye out there this week and indeed today, Uncle Mike?
This week, if this doesn't show the importance of options and an overall portfolio, then I don't know what does, quite frankly. In looking at this, the big thing that we are waiting on, or the next big move, of course, will be, or what we're looking at, Amazon and Apple coming out with earnings. Just watching 2 days ago when Microsoft had earnings, what was interesting about it to me, I don't feel that after hours option trading would be a thing and it would work. I just think it would be too illiquid. But just watching Microsoft after hours yesterday, it went down to 389. That's a lot. And so on there, I'm thinking, all right, well, the next morning I'm going to be doing something with these puts I have on Microsoft. 'Cause I have clients that have Microsoft positions with long puts on them, both hedged and unhedged. But in looking at it, I remember thinking, okay, well, 389, we can definitely not exercise. We can sell some puts, we can roll them, we can do this or we can do that. Next time I look, it's as if nothing happened. So Microsoft just said, April Fools, we're not really going to go down. We just wanted to fool you a little bit. So the good part about it is that for the client base that I have that has hedged Microsoft, it's something to where you can look at moves like that and you're fine. Even if Microsoft decided to go bankrupt the other night, who cares? We had a put option in place to protect it. Now, with the volatility that's existing in this marketplace, the clients that I have that are hedged Apple or hedged the market in general for that matter, even though we're in a market that is up 80 one day, down 80 the next day, I think we were even up like 110 at one point yesterday on the S&P. When you have things like that, I'm just going to go back to the prophetic statement I've said many times. If you're hedged, sticks and stones can break my bones, but market pullbacks won't hurt me. And so do I think you need to be hedged on everything in your portfolio? Absolutely not. But if you have part of your portfolio that you're concerned with, put options aren't necessarily a bad idea. And this week, to me, really shows that. And let's say that you're just getting into this now. You're like, okay, with a VIX at 18, I don't want to pay all that money for puts. Well, I would say to that, there's always the spread. There's always other things with which you can do, regardless of the pricing of options. So big things that I'm watching this week, of course, we're going to see Apple and Amazon. But aside from that, I just want to emphasize the importance of what I said actually last week when we were in Chicago live. I really felt it was a great time to be long stock and long a put. And that's where I'm at.
You are right about that Microsoft after hours move. That was something to behold, listeners. I thought for sure, you're like you did, that they were coming for Microsoft. Once it broke 400, I was like, okay, I started to get shades of back in my later Intel days when we start to see some earnings announcement towards the tail end of the dot-com boom, and all of a sudden things would really start rocking and rolling in the after hours. Huge aggressive swings, and that's exactly what we saw in Microsoft. And sometimes the old adage is better to be lucky than smart or lucky than good. I think some of that played out for Microsoft because they announced those terrible earnings into a day when the rest of the market was just feeling its oats and everything was up 1+% across the board, and it was just a day of optimism. So it seemed like you're right. All that negativity got erased, and it was pretty much unched by the end of the day. Facebook having a little bit of the opposite of that right now. They're announcing surprisingly good numbers into an otherwise disastrous market. So little bit of that playing both ways out there. Sometimes luck can come back to bite you. But yes, I'm very surprised that Microsoft, even with all this going off today, spoiler alert, still above the 400 level. In fact, you're right. Over the last 5 days, it is almost literally unched. It is off 0.15%. There's just a little blip on Tuesday where it got down to 393. It's like, oh, forget about that. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And right back up to where it was, almost to the penny, listeners. Again, that's just the market we're in right now. Speaking of that market, let's get to it. The Meatball kind of gave away some of it. There is some hot VIX action out there today, listeners. VIX on fire, 822,000 contracts. Even though, as a Meatball alluded to, are you feeling the 18 handle is a little low? You think it's a little underdone, the move, given what we've seen in the markets the last few sessions? Either way, the paper is keeping a pace. Again, 822,000 contracts on the tape, including what the Meatball was just talking about, this massive print, 100,000 exactly. I love when they do it, exact round numbers. 100,000 of the Jan 42 halves for 59 cents, listeners. Going up kind of exactly mid-market. If past is prologue, they're probably buying those. Don't get a ton of overwrites in VIX land, but nonetheless, we put it out to you folks, listeners. Are you folks buyers or sellers at that level right now? Just went live a few minutes ago, and right now, almost 2/3 of our audience is saying sold to you. In fact, one of our pro members, Age Delaquarius, literally wrote that. He said sold to you. So he's not a fan. Seems like most of you are sellers at that level. Interesting games. Only about 1/3 of you are buying. That's a flash poll. That'll be live. Tell you what, we'll have our producers keep it live through vol views tomorrow so we can get some fun VIX numbers to sink our teeth into on the show tomorrow. But VIX just popping hard today, volume-wise delivering as well. The ADV back up to 800,000, 806,000 to be precise in VIX land. SPY saying, hold my beer, all of you. 7.02 million contracts on the tape. The ADV, 7.8. So we're going to get there probably by the end of the show. So SPY just on the rampage, as the kids say. Just exploding in terms of volume. The S, no slouch as well. Almost 2.1 million contracts right now. The ADV, 3.16. I sound like a broken record, but it wasn't that long ago when I would see that kind of volume. And I'd be like, oh my God, the world is on fire. The S is doing 2 million contracts already by this time of day. Now it's just kind of par for the course. Obviously, it's a little bit more than we expect. Usually we expect the S around 1.75 million, but still, just impressive numbers across the board. Small caps also saying, watch out for me. 2.3 million contracts on the tape for the small caps right now. The ADV shy of 2 million, 1.96 million. So yeah, they're gonna hit that. In fact, they already have. In fact, as we're talking, they've ticked up a bit. 2.5 million contracts on the tape right now for small caps. And then the Qs, not to be outdone, listeners. We usually expect the Qs around 2 to about 2.25 million right now. 3.05 million right now. The ADV a tick under 4 million. They're probably going to hit that, maybe even by the end of the show as well. So just a banger day out there across the board in the major indexes. Now, is it the same game? It's the same story in the single names? And the answer is kind of I think people are kind of playing the wait and see game for the big names popping off after the bell today, because we have Snap breaking into our top 10 today. Snap coming in on the earnings front. Looks like they are popping off after the bell today. So all you watching Snap out there, $12.85 right now, off about $0.50 or about 3.5%. Good for 263,000 contracts, and the number 10 overall spot, listeners, a 263. That's what it cost you to break into the top 10 today. That's respectable for August, but maybe not for a day when the rest of the market is melting down. Number 9, I just mentioned them, my old stomping grounds, Intel, 29.25, off $1.50, nearly 5%. So they're planning a new round of layoffs. Usually that's a shot in the arm for the stock. Look at Facebook. They pretty much hit their low and it turned around right when they announced size layoffs. But apparently that is not doing the same for Intel as they sell off nearly 5% today. Number 9, 270,000 contracts. Number 8, LUMN Technologies. I have a feeling I might be coming back to this one. LUMN Technologies, ticker symbol LUMN. $3.50, up about 30 cents today, and putting up 273,000 contracts on the tape for good old LUMN. Number 7, we just talked about them. They of literally unched fame. They screw the pooch completely as you're a dumpster fire, and yet they are literally unched over the past week. That's an impressive feat. Talk about the earnings shell game. I don't know what bait and switch they pulled, or what they don't pay no attention. No one's paying attention to that man behind the curtain because they are literally unched. Impressive. Again, I think some of the yesterday's action in the market having to do with that. Number 7, Microsoft, 415,000. The stock almost at 415 as well, about 417 right now, off about $1.33 today. Man, that's crazy. Number 6, the Amazonians. Everyone's waiting for them. 184 and a 12 off, nearly $3, 285 right now, or 1.5%. Good for number 6, 441,000. Number 5, it's the fruit company. Also waiting for them today. 217.75 off 430, or nearly 2%. Everyone expects iPhones to be a dumpster fire. The question is, what else you got? And of course, maybe do they have some new models on the horizon to maybe gin up those sales again? You can only buy back stock so many times, so they've already pulled that rabbit out of the hat. Let's see what else they have lurking out here right now. Who was it? I believe it was Mr. Rhodes on VolViews last week. He was talking about Microsoft. He said some of these names are actually coming into the end of their fiscal year, in which case the amount of shenanigans they can pull in their earnings call is reduced because they are legally liable for their end of fiscal year reports. So interesting stuff afoot. We'll see if maybe that comes to bite Apple. Either way, number 5, 562,000 contracts on the tape for the fruit company. And number 4, it's Meta. I just mentioned them. They put out some surprisingly good numbers. People are buying a ton of Meta ads apparently out there, so that's working for them. 494.20, up about 19 and change. So about 4. Actually, this ticked about $21 now. About 4.6%. So obviously a good day, but it's hard to maintain this kind of upside in a day when the rest of the market is selling off, because they were trading about $30 higher not too long ago. They got up to about 527 earlier this morning. So they've given up $30 odd. They're still up $21. They're still a good day, but they were up 50 odd. So again, maybe by the end of the day they might even be red. We'll see. So again, sometimes what's going on in the broad market can throw a wrench into those works, or in the case of Microsoft, maybe save you. Number 3, AMD, selling off $10 today. They put out some banger numbers earlier this week. They were part of the reason that we rallied so hard yesterday. 133.40 off $11 today, or 7.7%. So apparently everyone bought it all up yesterday and decided it's too much. They bid it up to 151 yesterday. And then since then, man, it's off nearly 20 handles from there, back to 133.5. So we were at 134.25 before the earnings. They rallied it all the way up to about 151 and change. And then we're right back down to actually a little bit below, about $1 below where we were heading into the earnings. So there you go, listeners. The market giveth and the market taketh away. AMD number 3, 934,000 contracts. Number 2 and number 1, you can probably guess. Number 2, it's Tesla, 220, off about $12 today. Good for 1.2 million contracts. And the big dog, NVIDIA, 4.25 million contracts, 108.70, off 8 1/3, a little over 7% today. So they are coming for it. They're also off about $7.50 over the past week, and that's pretty much today's move. So yeah, this is another one where the market giveth and taketh away. Today they are taken away in spades. They aren't taken away on the earnings season front, though. This is a very hot and heavy week. Everything's been popping off. I already mentioned a bunch of the big ones. We also today have Moderna. We have CROX, of course, Amazon and Apple. And my old pals Intel out there. Coinbase, if you want to see what's cooking in the crypto world. Coinbase there for you. DraftKings, online wagering. Roku, they used to be a top 10er. Not so much anymore. Marathon, Mara, another big crypto name. Just talked about Snap and Square, so a lot of names popping off today. This is a heavy week, listeners. Even if you don't traditionally pay attention to earnings, you should probably sit up and take notice this week. We got a ton of names popping off for you. Luckily, because we like you folks, we have updated right before the show earnings move results, and earnings season reports. Like Moderna before the bell today, they were at 119.25. They were pricing in 7.8%. And again, one of the reasons why this is such a banger cycle, they delivered 17.6%. So almost 10 points beyond their straddle there. So yeah, again, outperformance is kind of the name of the game. And that's what we saw again there with Moderna before the bell. I mean, there's a ton of these here popping off before the bell here, listeners. You can see all those for yourselves. The move results are, of course, the reports that show you what they were expecting versus what they actually delivered in the immediate moment right after the earnings. So it's a very good snapshot of how these names are performing. Going a little bit farther out, let's go to, let's see, we had a couple names popping off here. We had Qualcomm yesterday. Let's see if we can get some. We obviously had Meta over there as well. Qualcomm, let's go to Qualcomm first. They were at about 181 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 7.1%, and surprise, surprise, they delivered 6.9%, so almost exactly in line. Not something we've seen a lot lately this cycle, listeners. And as of right now, they're off about 10%. So again, if you expand that window beyond the initial move from the earnings, they have outperformed their straddle out there, listeners. A bunch of names popping off. We talked about Meta already. They were pricing in 8.3%. They actually underperformed. If you look right now when we ran this report, 6.7%. At least that's where it was earlier this morning out there for Meta. Of course, if you crunch it right now, it's only 4%. So, of course, if you waited right in that early blush of 527, then they dramatically outperformed their straddle. So, again, it's a bit of a frame of reference issue. If you're more of a rubber shoe guy or gal, they popped off before the bell today. CROX, 134 in the third. They're pricing in 9.5%. Rare underperformance, listeners, only 6.1%. So I guess not a lot of vol in rubber shoes. And if you look at them right now, 3.5%. So rubber shoes is where vol goes to die. So premium sellers, unite around CROX. Let's see. We got a bunch of names pop. Oh, Roblox. They were popping off today before the bell as well. Let's see what's going on in younger gaming, shall we? 41.5 is where they were going into their announcement. Oh my goodness, they're pricing in 13.2%, so they got the memo on this cycle. And then so far, they have not delivered, only 3.9%, so dramatic underperformance there. They've expanded that to about 5.8% now, but still not even half of what they were pricing in from a straddle perspective. So my goodness, eBay, or some might call them Evil Bay, if you ever bought anything there. 55.61, they're popping off yesterday after the bell. They're pricing in 7%. They delivered, get this, listeners, 2.8%. So maybe we're starting to see a rash of underperformance, which, if that's the case, that's going to bring down our average. Our average has just been, I think the technical term is crazy town of late, just popping to extreme levels. So maybe we could do for a little bit of calm working its way into the earnings season. Yeah, there's a ton of those, listeners, move results. Let's go to Apple and Amazon after the bell. That's what everybody's waiting for. Apple, they were pricing in $8.63. By the way, they were about $2.22 even when we ran this report earlier this morning. In the past, they've moved $8.05. So they're pricing in about 60 extra cents worth of juice. But compared to everything else we're talking about, it's not really that materially much of a difference there. So they're kind of pricing in things to be in line. Is that overdone? Is that underdone? We kind of mentioned Meta might have been a interesting bargain given how much they've moved in the past. And of course, if you manage to scalp at the upper end or get out of your options at the upper end of that range, it certainly was. They had moved $60 odd on average in the past, and they're only pricing about 38. So it was a crazy, almost fire sale on MetaVol going into their announcement. As of right now, it's settling in, but you had that wild range, which you got to get out of, obviously. Get while the getting's good. Amazon today after the bell as well. 187 is where they were trading. They were pricing in, this is interesting as well, 12.25. In the past, they've moved 14.36. So they're actually taking about $2, $2.10 off the top. Wow. Did not expect that on the Amazonians. So maybe have we reached the apex is 113%. That's what our long-term moving average is right now for our earnings vol data, crunching all the seasons going back a number of years now. Is that just the apex? Is that too much? Are we starting to come back down the other side of that? Let's see. Coinbase today after the bell as well. 224 and a third. They were pricing in $16.78. In the past, they moved 16.5. So I would call that pretty much flat. Not a huge change there. So they're kind of pricing in things to stay the same. DraftKings today after the bell as well. About $37 is where they were trading. They were pricing in $3.43. In the past, they've moved $3.96. So 53 cents off the top. Wow. That is interesting. Again, the trend has been more vol, and then you outperform anyway on top of it. So maybe we finally reached peak earnings vol. I mean, we have hit some lofty levels of late, listeners. One more, Intel. Then we got to get to the Flowmaster. Intel, I'm having fun with the earnings vol, listeners. Intel first after the bell. 30.75 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $2.41. The past they moved $2.50 exactly. So pretty much flat there as well. So, man, a lot to unpack. Luckily for you, that's all on the website, theoptionsinsider.com. I literally just scratched the surface. There are hundreds of tickers you can do that for. So head on over there. We love you. It's all free as we keep on roll. Oh, by the way, the long-term average right now, coming back down to earth. It was 155. It's now just an explosive 135%. It's still ridiculous, but coming back down. And that's the season. The long-term average, of course, is 113%. So, man, we are still in some lofty territory. Are we in lofty territory for unusual activity? Let's find out. It's time to unleash the Flowmaster. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's get weird. Let's get wild. Let's unleash the beast that is the Flowmaster, see what he found for us this week. And I see the first one that he spotted is one that definitely came across my radar as well. This is TKO Group Holdings. You know them. They are the combined joint entity now of the UFC and WWE. If you've been watching any of their events lately or just keeping track of their sales, you know they're crushing it. They can't sell enough tickets. They sell out literally every venue they go to. It seems you never know there was any trouble in the economy by the number of ridiculously high-priced tickets they are selling for their events. But TKO selling off today, 107.64, off about $1.70. On the year, though, it's been a decent run for them. They got up to about 105 a year ago, actually. Then all that McMahon stuff started happening, where he was dumping the stock. The stock got down to 73, which I thought was a good do at the time. And obviously, in hindsight, it was because the stock is back up now to 107. It got up to actually 113.30 back a few weeks ago. So it's off the highs, but not much out there. Mr. Flowmaster, I see you noticed the same upside call action that we did. What caught your eye out there, sir?
I did. So looking at the trade of the day report, which I still have yet to make easy for people to sign up for. The very top one for yesterday was a pretty simple one, and I do know this is one of the names you like. I know you're a wrestling fan. So the top trade in terms of profitability yesterday was a buyer of 5,000 of these SEP 20 at the regular September, 115 calls. They pay, and this was right before 10 a.m. They paid $265. If you looked, that was really the only big block in there. It's not that active a name. The average daily volume in this thing is only 3,100 contracts. It was opening. It was a pretty aggressive sweep. I think it touched about a dozen exchanges, and those calls closed at 388 with the stock higher. So just a big directional trade that they timed right. They still seem to have the position on, and they're down a little bit on it right now, but it's still over $3. So, so instead of making $600,000, which is what it was on last night's close, and that's a 46% return, they're probably back to about half of that. It's still a big directional trade that's definitely larger than normal in there.
Mr. Meatball, sir, has a TKO come across your unusual radar at all?
Yeah, I'm looking at this. This looks like a big, huge sweep of the 115 calls here for August, right? They're just buying them in. They've just been kind of consistently buying them for 160, 165. Earnings are the 8th, so this appears to be an earnings play.
There was some August activity. These are the SEP that he's talking about. But yeah, there was some August, I believe, going up as well. There was just call palooza.
About 1,500 August. And the September, looks like about 5,000 of those yesterday. Pretty nice trade.
Not bad.
I like it.
Making money even when the stock is selling off, buying calls. So I guess you're doing something right. Let's go out here as well, Mr. Flowmaster, to another name you spotted. Haven't talked about this one in a while. This is Warner Music Group, ticker symbol WMG, off about $1 today, trading right around $29, a little over 3%. So not a great day for them. On the year, today's sell-off puts them down about 7.5% on the year, about 240. So they pretty much gave up their year today. The high was about $38. That came back in January. So they started the year at their apex. They're down 18%, 19% since the start of the year. So it's been a rough year here for Warner Music Group. And Mr. Flowmaster, surprise, surprise, you found your puts out there today. What was going up out there?
Yeah, so this is kind of a funny one. I really noticed it stood out because it's a 9,999 lot. And it looks like there was a one lot to round that out that traded right after. So these are the SEP26 puts. Stock was at 29.80 this morning, and this looks like a seller to me at 29 cents based on the Theo value. It's an electronic trade that printed on the box, so there's actually nobody to ask. We just pretty much have to go off of the indicative data. The market was 15 cents at 50 cents at the time, but like I said, our valuation of it is 40 cents, so that looks like a seller. They're currently quoted 40.55, but the stock's lower, so I think it's a seller. Not sure, but I mean, in a way, it's a bullish trade. It could be kind of a line in the sand trade. Somebody's saying they're happy to take the stock if it's almost $4 lower come September, and it is opening.
Mr. Meatball, are you a fan of these Warner Music Group SEP26 puts for around 30 cents, sir?
Yeah, there was actually a ton of that going. A ton of WBD today. What did they do? They bought, this was a pretty big trade. They did 96,300 of the Aug 9 7 puts versus the August 9 7.5 calls.
Not WBD, WMG, sir, Warner Music Group. Oh,
I'm sorry. Well, you got a huge trade in WBD.
WBD sounds active too.
One. That's a big trade too.
All the Warners lighting it up out here.
Straight looks like a straight put sale, right? Look, they're putting a line in the sand, looking to create a little income, and it looks like they want to buy Warner Music for $26.
Mr. Flowmaster will get you out of here on this one because I know you got to hop in a bit, but this one just came across our radar. I mentioned it at the top of the show. I said we're probably going to come back to this one because this is not a name we usually feature in our top 10 most actives. This is LUMN Technologies, ticker symbol LUMN. Pop in 22 cents or about 7% today. On the year, up $1.34, about 2/3%. Most of that coming in the last few weeks. It was $1.05 just on July 10th. So this thing has really rallied. Maybe not surprising that we're seeing just size call paper, so much so that it made it to our top 10 today. We first noticed a 30,000 lot of SEP 6s for 35 cents, then about 28,000 more of the SEP 6s. And now if you look today, there's 73,000 of those have gone up, 18,000 of the 4s. I mean, it's just I think a technical term is a call palooza, Mr. Flowmaster. I know you spotted this as well, sir. What are your thoughts?
Well, it is a call palooza. 218,000 calls versus 70,000 puts. That's both of those are 15 times normal. So, and I dug around and it's been actually active and kind of going up for the last 7-8 days. I did find a headline. I guess that this was probably what people were kind of waiting for. They signed some deal to provide fiber to Corning. And that actually plays into the whole AI story. So, people have been dying to find kind of the other AI plays besides NVIDIA. It seems like this has captured the attention of many, and it's impressive. I'll tell you though, the volatility too is off the charts. Today it looks like it's up about 80 points to 300-ish in the short dated stuff and 150-ish in the kind of longer dated. So I'm not sure what the expectation is there, but we don't see names hit 300 vol very often, and it can create some great trading opportunities.
Great opportunities indeed. And if folks want to find more of those opportunities, Mr. Flowmaster, and also give us a real quick glimpse, what are you keeping an eye on until your next appearance next week, sir?
You can always find us at Cboe.com/RMA. You can request a trade alert trial or a live vol trial. We have a couple other services there as well. I'm going to be watching earnings. Obviously, Apple and Amazon, those things tend to move the market. I believe there's still economic numbers tomorrow too. I think we have non-farm tomorrow morning. So, with VIX up here around 18, 19, that means we're going to be that means the market is telling us we're going to be seeing 1.5% moves pretty often. So, it seems like August is going to be a busy one. And I'll tell you on volume, July was over 50 million contracts a day average. We're on track for about 60 million contracts for today to start the month. So, it seems like the second half of the year could be a rockin' one. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks for having me.
All right. See you later, Mr. Flowmaster. His handle on Twitter says he's a grill master, so hit him up for all of your grilling questions as well. Mr. Meatball, sir, you must have noticed this I think the technical term is explosion of paper in LUMN, sir. Is this one on your radar, and what are your thoughts of these SEP 6s, 70,000 of them today?
Yeah, I actually did notice those. Yeah, they bought a chunk of them. 35 cents. They're looking for this thing to take off is what it comes down to. I'm interested to see whether they're going to be right, but it is, Henry's right. This is not cheap premium on any level, but I can probably come up with some better ideas on how to play it than those SEP 6s.
Just buy in the straight SEP 6s.
If this thing's going to the moon, they're going to be very happy.
Yeah, well, they could be laughing all the way to the bank. But in crazy stuff, listeners, keep an eye on them. LUMN, LUMN, because the paper is flowing out there as we keep on flowing right on into our final segment. It is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on for the rest of this week. Markets in a similar position, if not a little bit deeper sell-off than they were at the start of the show. S&P off about 1 2/3%, NASDAQ about 2.5%, and VIX cash north of a 19 handle now. So it does seem like we are perhaps climbing a little bit of that proverbial wall of worry out there in terms of vol and selling off out there in the broad markets. Speaking of selling, you folks wanted to sell those VIX Jan 42 haps just a little while ago, 59 cents. Now the buyers have come in. We are exactly 50-50. So our audience cannot make up their mind and want to buy or sell these. I guess that's what makes the market. Get over there, add options, make your voice heard. We will reveal the final results tomorrow there on Vol Views. As we go around the horn, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, one last time from the mobile office before he shows up at your house on your doorstep, listeners. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on?
Well, I think we need to watch the same things that Henry had said with Apple, Amazon, of course, non-farm tomorrow. But I think the other thing with which we need to see is what kind of a follow-through are we going to have in the bond market with talk of a potential rate cut come the fall. I just think there's a lot of talk happening right now in the rate land. And in addition to the other stuff we need to watch, watching bond prices going into the weekend.
Might some say you're getting on the boat with the 10-year note, sir?
When did I ever get off? Short or long, I'm still on the boat.
You're always on the boat. He's a perpetual boater. And Mr. Meatball, same question for you. Obviously, all eyes are on Amazon and Apple. Anything else on your radar? You said you were kind of flummoxed by this 18 to 19 handle in VIX. Are you keeping an eye on that as well?
Yeah, I want to see where this market goes because, we've given away most of the NASDAQ rally from yesterday. The S&P is, I believe, below where it closed. Let me just confirm that. But I believe below where it closed the previous day before the Fed. We are, I want SPX, not LUMN. We're back below the 50-day moving average. The last time we even threatened the 100-day moving average was in April. And we have not dipped below the 100-day moving average since October of 2024, almost a year. And we were only below that level for, looks like about 10 days. So I am watching that, what are they going to do here? The recent low was from the 25th when we briefly broke 5,400. I'm wondering if they're going to make another stab at that, especially if earnings don't follow through today.
All right. And that music means there's no more follow through on the show today. But luckily for you folks, if you're hanging out on the Pro, just hang out. I'll be back in a little bit to talk all things futures options. Maybe we'll all get on the boat with the 10-year note on TWIFO coming up in a little bit. I don't know. Uncle Mike won't be on, so probably not. But you never know. I'll be joined by our good buddy, Mr. Rich Excel. He's a good one to hold court on a variety of. He might talk a little bit of rates if he twists his arm. But intriguing stuff. You never know who's going to make it on the show. You got to tune in to TWIFO every week. If you're listening on demand, of course, just hit next on your podcast device of choice. TWIFO should be waiting there for you. And Mr. Uncle Mike, he's waiting at your house right now, so go open the door. But before you do that, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if folks want to arrange their own in-person meeting, get the Uncle Mike mobile, come into their house, where should they go? What should they do?
Absolutely. Well, a couple things. You can go to my website, stcharleswealth.com, if you want to set up an appointment with me, either in person or online. Or follow me on Twitter. I put a lot of content out, doing back on the webinar train again, at Mike Tosaw, Tosaw.
There you go, at Mike Tosaw. Just check the box that says, yes, I would like the Uncle Mike mobile to come to my house. And he, too, can be broadcasting maybe from your driveway. We shall see. stcharleswealth.com, the place to go to make the magic happen. And Mr. Meatball, if they want to make the magic happen at the old Option Pit U, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at OptionPit, and you can find out all the information. We're gearing up to talk VXX tonight. That is August 1st at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, 6 o'clock Central. Hopefully you guys can join me. I'll put out a link to join us on my Twitter account.
And when are we getting this much ballyhooed SVIX revolutionary strategy? When's that coming out?
I think I'm going to launch it next week. Not that I will be buying it, but it's coming. It's coming down the pipe next week or early the following at the latest.
His revolutionary SVIX strategy, listeners, buy SVIX. It's worked out pretty well over the last year.
Well, be long SVIX unless you don't want to be long SVIX.
Yeah, then do not be long. That's a good strategy to have. In the meantime, listeners, get your degree from the ivy-covered halls of Option Pit U. Go to optionpit.com. Flowmaster already told you where you should be going for a little bit of data love. Cboe.com/RMA, the place to go to kick the tires on all the data we have cooking. I mean, we really just scratched the surface. We crunch a lot of it on the show for you. All this is Flowmaster's data, listeners. There's a heck of a lot more to be found. All the flex stuff, all this cool stuff. Check it out. Cboe.com/RMA is the place to go. That's going to do it for us on the OBE today. Back again in a little bit for TWIFO, This Week in Futures Options. Back again tomorrow, different bat time for Vol Views, coming at you an hour earlier with the Rock Lobster and Mr. Dr. Vix, because I will be traveling later in the day. So look forward to that. And then you might be getting, you might be getting Options Oddities tonight. So an early Options Oddities for all you pro folks as well, because we love you. And then back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.